I'd like to call our October 2nd, 2025 Roanoke County School Board work session to order. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Item 2.01, Major Construction Project Updates, Mr. Todd Kagels, Mr. Wes Mitchell, and Mr. Kamal Khalil.
Madam Chair, members of the board, these guys really don't need any introduction. I think they're kind of part of the family now, but we have Kamal Khalil, who's the project manager at W. Cundiff and Glen Cove, and Wes Mitchell, who's the project manager at RCCTC, to give us our updates.
Good afternoon, everybody. We'll start off with the CTE project. Obviously, we had topping out last week, so a lot of these updates, many of you are already aware of, but we'll go over them real quick. Starting with site work, coming along really nicely. Curb and gutter around the turn lane and entry road as of last week, and then early this week we actually put some asphalt down. So if you drive by on Peters Creek, you'll see the turn lane and the roadway going up into the site is paved, at least that top coat. So looks real nice. And then we're grading out the parking lot so they can work around and start paving that front parking lot to the building as well. Also got gas up to and tied into the building in the last month. Storm structures in the east are complete. We're just removing the all the stone that we had stacked up there to get it in, and then we'll start working north, which that's all controlled fill, so it should be pretty quick moving. Storm structures will start rolling pretty nicely. The grease trap and sanitary installation also in the east was completed this month as well. Area D construction, that's the back of the building where the HVAC lab is and the building trades shops. Just on the exterior of that, continued with brick and stacked stone. Pretty much got it all done, less a few areas of brick above some doorways. And we've got all the scaffolding down for that too. So if you can go up there, you'll be able to see how it all ties in together. The only skin we're missing is the metal paneling. So once that's up in the next couple months, you'll see what the building's going to look like. Aluminum frame windows and glazing at the high bay windows also going in. And then doors, just, we don't have the sweeps in and stuff, but we're pretty much dried in in area D with a few windows missing, but for the most part, we're dried in. And then we're actually even installing some hardware on our exterior doors. They're painted and ready to go. Area A construction, in the last month, the roof was completed in all of Area A, so it's almost dried in. That's released them to start doing top outboard and insulation in the interior walls. And then also on the exterior, they began stacked stone and brick in Area A as well. That front face of the building, as you come up, the stacked stone as of today was probably 85% complete. And then the MEP trades are still ongoing with in-wall and overhead rough-in in Area A, getting all of our ductwork and everything finished up and we'll be getting close to insulating ductwork here soon. Area B and C construction, steel erection is ongoing. We've just got a little bit of decking, and C, our stairs, and then just finishing up all our welds and stuff with the steel work in Area B and C. And then the second floor is prepped for concrete, which we'll have a pour tomorrow morning at 5 a.m. So the second floor slab on deck will be poured in the morning, and not all of it. We'll break it up into several pours, but here soon we'll have a floor to walk up on in Area B so you can see what that second floor looks like. Just going over some pictures. So this is the completion of the brick in Area D. You can also see the windows, the high bay windows above with the glass. And then on the right, this is the east elevation where it's yellow. That's into Area A. That'll be our metal paneling, but then you have your two colors of brick and stacked stone there on the east elevation. That's all complete. This is the roof over area A. This is the light monitor there on the left. So in the big common area, there's a pop-up. That's what that is. It lets light into that big common area. And then the roof, less some detailing, is all complete and we're dried in. That's the front of the right side. That's the front of the building where the stacked stone is going up. And there's a lot more progress since that picture. They're moving pretty quick. This is the Area B corridor on the first level. You can see that we've got all our hangers and stuff in for all of our duct work. They've actually moved along quite nicely with that, and we've got a lot of mechanical piping all the way down that corridor as well now. And then right above that is where they'll be pouring the floor tomorrow morning. And then on the backside in the shop areas, we're getting prepped so we can start laying brick on that backside as well. This is the grease trap on the east side of the building. That's right outside of the culinary classroom. That's all finished up and tied in. And then on the right, you can see that's the entry to the parking lot, and that was paved, at least that section of it this week. So moving along. Any questions on CTE? Come on.
Good afternoon. Nice to see you guys again. On Condiv, we handed in, or we turned over like Phase A, 1B, Phase 2A, second floor. You've probably seen some of the pictures from a few visits back. Now the admin, corridor, cafeteria, kitchen, all of that, we're going to be turning over 10/24, hopefully. But everything looks good. We're good on time. We're making good progress. On the gym, there's 2 rooms that's done. There's 1 room that's still in progress. As far as the sidewalk, all the lights are done. All the pedestals or like the foundations are done. They keep these lights on just as a test. Maybe they've been on for a week, maybe more. They just poured on the 2A, like first floor. They poured the shear footing and the steel bracing. They did that the other day. Continue on Condiv, Phase 2, 2A, continued. Let me see. We're doing drywall, framing, overhead, copper piping, heat pumps, electrical panels. On some of these, they're waiting on the guts, the breakers, but we should be fine in the next week or 2. Water, sprinklers, overhead, that's also done. Now on Glen Cove, we turned over 1B. We're working on a few items, like a handful punch list items. The admin, we turned over that like a month ago when the school started. We're working on some of the punch list. Phase 2A, second floor, that's ongoing now. We just turned that over also not too long ago. We're working on the punch list. We started like 3 days ago. But all the electrical is done, all the painting is done, so inspection is done. Phase 2A, first floor, that's the major of the work now, where the cafeteria, the kitchen, and some of the classrooms next to it, that's being done, from overhead wiring to panels, you name it. Some of the block is done. Kitchen and cafeteria, the same thing. Like the HVAC system is being worked on. They just installed the hood, the kitchen hood. Finishing drywall, starting like the ceiling work. Some of the overhead sprinklers are being done also. The site work, landscaping is done. All the trees are done. Reseeding also is done. So pretty much the whole parking lot is done, except we might have to come back and do another surface or asphalt later on. This is at Condiv. That's the cafeteria. That's the dining area. It looks good, doesn't it? That's when they cleaned it up a week ago. But this is what we're gonna hand in on 10/24. These are a little bit messy, but I bring them in just to show you guys what the kind of work, like overhead work, the copper piping work that you can see. And I'm glad that Todd added another one to show you the difference between this work and what the finished work. This is also in the kitchen on the right-hand side. They're bringing in all the equipment and hooking them up, and you can see it's a little bit messy, but on the left-hand side, there's the walk-in coolers they're being also tested. They're on. Today I checked, they're like at 38 degrees, so they're doing their job. This is the picture that I showed you with the work before, and this is after. This is also this is the admin area all the way to the front. That's the main office, some offices and some storage area. And this is like the when you walk in, the visiting area, the main office. And this is some of the clinic, and that's where the break room where the mail slots. This is another picture of that dining area, and this is also the kitchen. Some of the equipment that's being connected and being worked on. These are the heat pumps, and this is from the back. This is an admin area. This is like the lobby. That's when they poured that shear foundation and they put the brace of the steel. And that's some of the furniture being delivered. The one on the left is the data area. It's a IT room, I call it. And this one is like one of the classrooms that the plumbers are working on the faucet. That's outside. On the right-hand side, you see the reseeding and the landscaping, the trees that they put in. And on the left-hand side, just the work being done in the corridor. Any questions?
So we've got scheduled for October 24th and either 9 or 9:30. I think we're working with the principal on setting the time, but that's when we're going to have the brief ceremony to open up the new
Yes,
wing.
sir.
So look forward to doing that. Of course, everybody's invited to come out for that.
I had the pleasure of going over this week, and it does look absolutely
It looks amazing.
It really does. There was one question that came up that Ashley mentioned, and I'm sure it's the same to Glen Cove, was the elevators. Are those getting replaced or repaired? Or the
They're
reason I
not
ask is,
scheduled to be, well, they should be repaired. They should be operational now.
well, they are operational, but she mentioned having trouble with
Yeah,
them.
we did have some trouble earlier in the year, but all of that's been repaired. They are old. They are not in the scope to be replaced. We may have the option to replace those at the end if we have enough contingency left to do that, and that would certainly be one of the things we would suggest to do with the contingency because they are old. You really can't get parts for them anymore. We had to have the control panels rebuilt is what was going on this summer. So yeah, that would be a good use of the contingency if it's left at the
Yeah,
end,
she
but it's
just
not the
mentioned
current
that,
scope.
so I didn't know exactly the extent of the problem, but
Yeah.
it'd be a shame to have a new school and not be able to use it.
Yeah, we agree. They're
But nonetheless,
expensive.
I
I
get
think it was over $100,000 to.
Yeah, I'm sure they're not
replace
cheap.
it.
Thank you. Looks great.
Thank you.
Are the HVAC systems at both these elementary schools all brand new, or are we reusing some of those?
Almost brand new in both schools. So, like some of the heat pumps, we had already installed them before so we purchased all those new heat pumps with ESSER money, and we had installed some of them, and then the renovations were approved. So we reused those units that were almost new. And at one of the schools, I think it was they hadn't been installed at all, so those are all new installs. The ones at Glen Cove are reused, but they're only like less than a year old. So, yeah. Any other questions on those? Thanks, Lisa.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you.
Item 2.02, minor capital projects discussion, Mr. Todd Caples.
Yeah, so we have just quick updates on all of the other minor capital projects that we have going on. Again, this doesn't encompass all of the maintenance projects that we have going on as well, but these are the ones the board has funded through minor capital. Bond SAC, there hasn't been any change since our last meeting. We're still working with the school to determine a convenient time. We think we have that worked out to where that's all going to be done during the school year this year. Out at Northside, the carpenters are working to do that fax to nutrition, or convert the science rooms to fax and nutrition, and that should be done around the end of the month. We were hoping to be done a little bit earlier, but we've had a couple of snags and should still be finishing that up by the end of the month. Out at Hidden Valley Middle, so we're breaking that ceiling and LED lighting replacement up into phases to try to be able to work on that during the school year. We'll kind of be able to shut certain areas, certain corridors down and do the ceilings and the lights in those areas. The first phase is going to happen in early November, actually over the election day weekend there, and extend a little bit into the next week. And then the second phase, which is about a third of the building, will be done over the Christmas break, and then we'll hit another phase during spring break, and then the last one will be over the summer. So by the end of the summer, that will you'll have new ceilings, new LED lightings throughout through the public spaces in that building. So that's coming along. That's, like I said, it's already under contract. That first phase is. We're actually contracting out each phase separately. So first phase is under contract. Second phase, we already have the bids, and we're working on that. Excuse me 1 second. There we go. At Fort Lewis, I do have some pictures of that one. We're about done with the demolition out there. Remember what we're doing out there. This was the surround on the cooling tower. Put in a new cooling tower. It's taller than the old tower, so the brick walls, leave it exposed. So remember, you approved money to go ahead and extend the height of the wall. So what we're doing here is extending the height of the wall all the way around and completely replacing the back wall. If you see here, the gap at the top of this wall is actually bigger than the gap at the bottom, and that's because that back wall had started to lean away from the rest of the structure. So they're digging up the footer, replacing the footer, and then rebuilding that. So that's already underway, should be done in the next month or so. At Northside High School, remember we're renovating the restrooms out there. The guys are probably going to be finished by the end of the next week. This is just some pictures from earlier this week. They've actually come farther than that now. I'm sure you don't remember what they looked like when we took the before pictures, but they were really bad. And now they're going to be beautiful. They've made a ton of progress. They've got new lights, new LED lighting in there, totally new ceiling, new ventilation, all new fixtures. They've actually taken down the plastic sheeting that was on the walls and just gone back with the block and painted floors. They're going to be super nice, and they're making great progress on that. Cave Spring Middle School, remember we're regrading the softball field, replacing the fence, doing irrigation and drainage. The engineering firm, this is same as where we were before. The engineering firm is under contract. We're still waiting on those documents. We're about 8 weeks out, probably about 6 weeks out now. And it's still our goal to have it ready for play by the 27 softball season. Out at Hidden Valley High School, same situation we were in at our last meeting. We're still waiting on the engineering documents. As soon as those are back, we'll be able to have a better gauge of what we need to do going forward. And remember, on that one, we only approved funding to do the engineering work. So just waiting on the documents to come back from the engineering team. At Northside High School, we're putting up new stadium lights. That is a change from where we were at the last meeting. We have that under contract with Techline. We're working with AEP. We've already requested the new service, 480 volts out there for the new system. And what we're going to do is build it right alongside the old system. So the poles are going in slightly different locations. They'll actually relocate a little bit behind the bleachers on both sides. And they'll be able to build the new system right alongside of the old system and keep both systems or keep the old system functional while the new system is under construction. And then we'll just switch over when it's done. So there shouldn't be any interruption to the, in service to the stadium. And our goal is to have that ready by spring sports, the first week of spring sports. Out at Hidden Valley High School, We're doing that artificial turf on the soccer field. I was actually in touch with the engineers and the contractor today. The survey work has been completed. We've sent the designs from the contractor over to the engineer who's putting all that together, and as soon as those documents are finished, they'll go to Roanoke County for approval, and then once it's approved, then we can break ground on that. But that is coming along, and we still anticipate being done before the first game in the spring. At Cave Spring High School, we're renovating the snack bar out there. This week, we held a meeting with the stakeholders. Ms. Clemens was there, and we went through the scope of work and what they would like to do out there. We're actually doing a little pre-construction meeting with our electrical guys tomorrow. We need to increase the capacity of the electrical service to that building, so that's going to be our first step. And we were requested to wait until the end of football season to start, so that's what we're doing. And our goal there would be, again, to be done by spring sports. Glenver Elementary School, we're replacing the office suite flooring. That's actually going to be done over the Election Day weekend, so that first weekend in November, and it should all be done in the 2 or 3 days that we have available to us there, so that'll be done soon. And then out at Glenver Elementary, remember we're adding restrooms for the staff out there, 2 restrooms for the staff. We contracted with RRMM for the design work. The floor plan has been completed and approved by the school. That was the initial floor plan, so now we're just waiting on the engineering work to be completed. And as soon as that's done, we'll figure out how we move forward from there. We're kind of debating whether our guys can do that. They have the capability to do that. I'm not sure we have the time to do that, along with all the other jobs that we have for them to do, and be able to get all that done by the spring. So we're trying to see if there's a way to get it within our budget and have a contractor possibly complete those restrooms. Any questions on any other minor capital projects? And that's all I have this evening.
Thank you. Item 2.03, Glenver High School naming of baseball field, Miss Tammy Newcomb.
Thank you. On behalf of Dr. Nicely, I'm forwarding the request from Dr. Franklin and her committee to name the Glenver High School baseball field in honor of longtime coach and teacher, Mr. Larry Wood. The division committee carefully reviewed the request and verified that all steps outlined in policy procedures for naming a school facility have been followed. Coach Larry Wood's legacy is unparalleled in Roanoke County schools. Since beginning his coaching career in 1971, he dedicated more than 5 decades to high school athletics, 49 of those years at Glenver High School. His contributions to students, athletes, and the Glenver community span across multiple sports, including 18 years coaching football, 15 years coaching basketball, 25 years coaching baseball, 14 years coaching softball, 2 years coaching gymnastics, and 1 year coaching wrestling. In addition, Mr. Wood taught health and PE at Glenver for 29 years, drove an athletic bus from 1971 to 2010, served faithfully on the football chain crew from 1988 to 2022, and led the Glenver baseball program to its first and only state championship in 1994. In recognition of his extraordinary service, lifelong dedication, and lasting impact on countless students and athletes, I respectfully recommend that the school board approve the name of the Glenver High School baseball field as Larry Wood Field in his honor. We have in attendance with us Glenver community members who recommended this honor with us: Jason Murray, Jeremy Cromer, Troy Henderson, and Brian Crockett. If you have any questions for them, they are here.
I personally don't have any questions from my district. I wholeheartedly support the idea. I've met Larry. He's a wonderful guy. Beyond the accolades, he's just a really nice guy that truly cares about the community. Love him to death, and I definitely support this.
My son had the pleasure of playing for him, not at Glenver, but at Roanoke College, and he thought the world of him.
So I believe this is an action item at the next school board meeting.
Yeah, I mean, you could do it as consent, but you might want to consider doing it as an action item as a way to celebrate it, make it more public.
I think you would.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Congratulations, guys.
Thanks, sounds very
Hilarious.
Thank you. Thank you.
See you guys.
Signs already in production.
Item 2.04, policy updates, Dr. Jamie Soltis.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. So we just have two policy updates and one admin reg update, and these are updates that are due to changes in code. And one was in reviewing the policy with Stacy, the attorney, Ms. Haney said that we should align it with the state code. So I gave you guys a packet that has the actual policies. I tabbed where the person who's making the recommendation had made the change. So according to state code, now when a child is at risk for suicide, we are required to provide them with suicide prevention materials, not the child, the parents. And it should include things that lays out in code exactly what it's supposed to include, which is safe storage of firearms. It also may include recommended best practices and strategies for reducing a student's access to lethal means, such as firearms and medications. I actually will give this credit to Sean. The state is supposed to be producing some things, and we haven't received those yet. We did have some stuff the state had given us before, so Sean worked with Chuck to kind of create some resources to make sure that we would be in compliance with the code until we get the actual state documentation, and then we'll line it up. But so that's the only change to that, was we added a line that provided to the parent materials on suicide prevention that include the information on the legal requirements set forth in the Virginia Code relating to the safe storage of firearms in the presence of minors, and that may include guidance on best practices for strategies for limiting a student's access to lethal means, including firearms and medications. So basically just trying to inform the parents to keep the kids safe. Then policy 7.07, Ms. Newcomb was reviewing this policy with Ms. Haney, the lawyer, and basically in the code it said we had 3 days in our policy and it needed to be changed to 5 days to match the Code of Virginia. So if you go to the page I marked, basically all we did was change it from 3 days to 5 days so that it is in alignment with code. And that's just notification will not be accepted after 5 days upon the student's return to school. That's all that is. We were a little stricter than the Virginia Code. And then the last one is an admin reg, and I just wanted to make you guys aware, we added one sentence to this, and we tried to carefully craft this sentence. Under Class A, which are the organizations that we partner with that we do not charge fees for our facilities, we added a nonprofit organization that provides licensed daily after-school child care services on all regular school days during the academic school year. So this would be like the Y, Boys and Girls Club, and things like that, where it's actually a benefit to our community because they are allowed to come in there and operate. So they would be exempt from fees, and that's all I have.
They do, however, they really should be completing a long-term agreement like we do other long-term things, and so that's something that we've discovered was not in place. We want to get that in place, but our recommendation is that we consider not doing any charges for that, because like Dr. Soltis says, that we think that's a benefit to the schools. So currently under Class A, the only organizations that are not charged are anything school related, like the school events, PTA, or anything Roanoke County government, like Parks and Rec. So Parks and Rec, they run a number of these after school child care programs through their ASK program. So all this would do would just be bring the Boys and Girls Club and the YMCA, who also do programs, into that same fold. So this doesn't require your approval, but unless there's an objection, that's how we like to move forward with that.
And so then my recommendation is, if you don't have any concerns about the policies that I talked about, that we move those to consent.
Just say one thing further about that whole notion. If you don't have one of these organizations in your community, we now have one at our church, at Boys and Girls Club, which is working out fabulously. We probably need more capacity and room, and we're talking about that and how we can increase the size of that program. But for our kids and for kids that need a little structure, not to be at home by themselves, different things, I encourage you to look into this for your communities. I want to grow ours because I think it's that useful and that helpful to our families. So, and I will vote every time to provide service to these groups to get our kids there.
So we'll actually be bringing back to you for your approval, your formal approval, those long-term agreements. And one reason this came up is because YMCA is actually wanting to expand and add a program out at Mason's Cove.
Good.
So we're looking forward to that.
Good.
It's great when our buildings can be used for multiple purposes that serve our community.
Item 2.05, 2025-2026 VDOE Security Equipment Grant, Ms. Susan Peterson.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the board. Each year, Roanoke County Public Schools applies for the Virginia Department of Education Security Equipment Grant. This is a competitive grant that school divisions can win up to $250,000 for safety improvements. We applied for 3 schools and were awarded 1. We were awarded $56,000 for Herman L. Horn Elementary School. This grant does require a 25% local match. We will use the funds to replace cameras inside and outside of the building that are compatible with the Verkada cameras that we're installing. The $56,000, we would request you accept the grant and appropriate funds from the grant fund special projects, and then the local match $14,000. We would request that you appropriate funds from the minor capital special projects, which is consistent with where the security grant typically comes from for the match. And if you agree, then this can just roll into consent.
Did I say that?
You did say it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 2.06, calendars for the 2026 summer school programs, Ms. Kim Bradshaw and Mr. Mike Riley.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the board. The instructional department wants to bring the summer school calendars here for your consideration. Chuck, if you can just open up the elementary one first. They're very similar to ones we've had in the past. What we would do is we would start the summer program at the elementary level, be housed at most of the schools. Of course, with construction, sometimes we'll have to have students at other schools, but it would start June 8th, which is a Monday, and run through the 25th, getting us finished before the 4th of July week, which is what we always try and do with our elementary and middle school programs. Gives us a total of 11 student days, 14 teacher days, running the same hours we have in the past. With the one day we don't hold it is the day we have the primary elections in all our buildings. That's the June 16th date. We're getting an extra day this year just because Juneteenth falls on a Friday. So we've had to also have that off in the past, so we won't have to do that this year for our summer school folks. Moving on to the middle school calendar, it's exactly the same. We try and pair them up for transportation reasons. That way buses can run at the same time. So they'll again start on June 8th, running through the 25th, again 11 days, with the June 16th off. And both of those programs are of no charge. We have some federal grant funding still remaining and state reimbursement that fund those remedial programs. So before I move on to the high school, are there any questions about the elementary or middle school summer programs or the calendars? And then if not, the high school, we've got 2 different programs that run. We've got our face-to-face programs that run at Northside High School. Those will also start on June 8th, the same start date, but they will run through July 7th because we need 20 days to run those because those are credit recovery or in some cases new classes. I know a lot of students like our face-to-face health and PE classes that we offer along with driver's education. So those will run through July 7th. The days off for those students would be June 19th. Of course, that's the Juneteenth holiday because we do run through Friday at the high school, and then July 3rd for the 4th of July holiday. We would finish up on July 7th for students. Again, we would hopefully provide transportation for those, and that is funded by student tuition. And then, of course, in the summer, we also run our online academy. A lot of new classes are offered there. That runs a little different because those are all new classes. So those would start on June 3rd and run through July 14th. And again, those are funded by student tuition. Are there any questions on the high school programs?
Just want to thank you for getting this out
Yes.
earlier.
Yep.
That's as a parent myself who is organized. Everybody wants this information sooner than later. So
Right.
thank you for working on that.
You're welcome. All right. And so what we'll do then is we'll put that in consent agenda for the next board meeting.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Item 2.07, report on enrollment data, Ms. Tammy Newcomb.
How do I make it go up there? I heard it click now. Do I do those little?
Windows.
FN and F8 up at the top, maybe?
It's not you, is it?
You sure? Because that's usually me. That it's me. It always happens to me.
Let's try. Go straight. Move the laptop down.
So
she just said it wasn't me.
It does not like
Should I put it on
your
this side?
laptop. No, this is HDMI. It doesn't like your laptop. Are you outputting? Oh, hold on. Okay. Here we go.
There we go. That's nice. All right. Thank you for waiting. Last meeting, we talked about ADM. Ms. Peterson had brought it up in the budget, so I wanted to review on where we are currently and where we've been in the past with our ADM and with enrollment. So here you can see from 21-22 school year, our enrollment this year we're at 13,136. The number like 26 CISNA, those numbers are students who have reimbursement from a grant because of the services, the additional services that they get. They're not included in the ADM, but they are funded through a different grant. And to give you an example, what those students would be like if they had a one-on-one or if they had some other significant services that are above what other students receive.
That's a doubling of the number 2021 to 2025.
Mm-hmm.
So more are getting that funding.
More getting that. Mm-hmm.
Which is actually good
That's
because we're
good.
getting more
Yeah.
revenue
Yeah.
to
What's
pay
the
for the services.
what's the amount of the money? If you don't mind asking?
It is good question. So with the CISA enrollment with 52, it is
We're having a revenue estimate of about 1.3 million
Okay.
on the 52 Cisna kids.
Okay.
So
I have the numbers. I'm just not sure which number. It
It's
goes
all right.
with.
Just-
1.3.
It's not a big deal.
Okay.
I was just curious.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
So we do have our own academy, full-time students, and I wanted you to see how that's that's going. So when we first started the full-time academy, meaning students can do academy, it's almost like homeschool, but they do our school,
Yep.
but they can participate in
Pretty good.
our events and our activities. And so that's increased to 150. That's full-time. The academy is really utilized for kids who just take one class here or two classes there. So it's really a good benefit. We also put this on our homeschool page that we have for students and staff to see. So if they're looking at homeschool, they also can see that Academy is an option. These are our kindergarten enrollment numbers. If you can see, it has decreased.
That aligns with, remember the county funded that demographic study. We looked at that last year in terms of the birth rates, and then of course the ongoing issue they pointed out with the single family housing, lack thereof in Roanoke County. So those are things you've seen before.
So what are you saying? What are you saying by that?
What's that in terms of the lower?
You saying they're leaving the area?
What's that?
Are you saying people are leaving the area?
Their birth rates.
The birth rate's lower.
Right.
You're
So
talking
you're
about
saying
housing.
in the 5 years was about 100 less kids?
About 100 less, yes, 100 fewer.
So you think that's a birth rate issue?
Enrolling, not all birth rate. I'll show you.
Okay, yeah, I didn't. That would shock me.
Well, the net migration, right, and part of what
Yeah.
the demographic study pointed out was just the lack of single family housing, being an issue as far as getting that out.
I get the lower numbers. What I keep having, and I get that we're having less kids as families, but in 5 years, did they all of a sudden stop? So that's having kids, right? So I think to your point, there must be some other issues.
Yeah, that is one factor. One
Right.
factor that the birth
Right.
rate is lowering. And I'll show you the difference with homeschool and where some of the other kids are going. This is our non-resident transfers. This is how many kids we are accepting who are not Roanoke County residents but pay tuition to come to us. So that's steadily increasing, which helps us.
And I think that's something, board, that we ought to continue to look at. I think where are we at? $1,000 or $1,100 now?
1,000.
So
and no fee for employees.
If they're good kids and we don't have a lot of issues and problems, whatnot, I'm not sure this is the way the world's going, but I think it's probably more of a competitive, and we are top notch school division, right? I'm not sure we don't reduce that a little bit still, and we get about $8,500 a kid that we educate through the state, through the ADM, right? For me, that might be something, $1,000 that probably isn't going to deter them, but it's still worth noting if they're good kids and productive in classroom and so forth, then why not take them?
Yeah, and we did really look at every application that came in this year if there was any question. So these are the withdrawals. Of course, 25-26, we're very early into the year. But things are different than they used to be, where I stayed in the same school the whole entire time. Many kids don't nowadays. And so not only they're going from, let's say, William Byrd to Northside, but we've got kids coming from out of state. We've got kids coming from out of the country and moving. So when you see public school in state, that means they moved from our school system to another school system in the state of Virginia. And the public out of state is they've moved out of the state of Virginia. When you see the private numbers and the homeschool numbers. Now, the homeschool number will increase as the school year goes.
But that's all of those have dropped fairly drastically, right?
Well, it has, but you'll see that it'll increase because we'll have kids who'll withdraw.
No, I get the homeschool piece. I'm talking about all those sections right there.
Well, because it's early on. So the
we're only a couple months in.
Right.
Yeah, but
That's
it'll
the
go
end of
up.
the year total.
It will.
Well, let's take out this year. So private came down 24 over 2 years, and the year before. Now homeschool's going on, and I think that's going to continue to be a trend. Well, I guess public school in state is about the same, and public out of state is a little bit less. So yeah, I guess some have and some haven't, but that's kind of not where we're losing them, I guess.
I mean, so far, it's what it
See what I'm
indicates. And keep in mind, the other thing that came out of that demographic study was it really commended Roanoke County schools in terms of what they call their capture rate. That in terms of all those things, compared to other places they looked at, we do a good job of keeping people in public school here.
Well, that's, again, we're
Did the
one of the
demographic
top.
study that you referred to, did that project out in the future years? Where does that have next
I think
year?
that was included. We can send that
5
back out
years,
to you.
3
This was the
years from
one that
now?
we had the joint
With the
meeting with,
joint
right?
meeting. Yeah, it was in there. I can't remember.
It was like
I
it was
have that too, so I can
1 or
resend it.
2%. I feel like it was a trickle. It wasn't a sudden
It wasn't
drop.
dramatic.
Like the big drop, I feel like has already happened. So Tim, you mentioned why. Everything that I read about it is 2007 seems to be this year that fewer babies were born
Mhm.
after 2007. Whatever you want to attribute it to, the stock market, this, that, and the other.
So that's a total of our homeschool students. And I broke it down by grade level so you can see. We do have students who will be homeschooled in elementary and then they return to us in secondary. That seems to be a trend if they do return to us. And that's all I have to show you. Any questions?
No, but here's what you can't argue about that, and this is the reason it's important to know where these kids are going, right? So when I started 10 years ago on the school board, I'm going to have these numbers wrong because I didn't come in prepared for that, but we were at about 14,200, 300, something like that. Now we're down to 13,100. Now, I don't know if that's a societal thing, because we hear a lot about homeschooling, private schooling, all that stuff. And whether we want to agree with the board of supervisors on this or not, they're right. The trend is down. And we're one of the top-notch school divisions in the state of Virginia, right? So it's got nothing to do with that piece. So, and I get families are having less kids, but they didn't just stop all of a sudden. So there's somewhere I still think we ought to drill into that and just look at that and see what's going on so that we have a better understanding. Otherwise, I'm telling you, because the pressure's been put on in the last number of years to look at, are we adequately, the demographic study actually patted us on the back for having the schools with students, the proper numbers, but we've had pressures put on us to consider, that number going down. Do we need the same number of facilities? So I think it behooves us. Now, we can wait until an emergency or crisis happens, but if we can figure that number, what's going on with that, figure that out. And we can't just say people are having less babies. And if they are, we're going down. I think it would behoove us to find that out now rather than wait 5 or 6 more years and find out, hey, we're down to 12,500. What's going on? And then the pressure's going to really be on to shut down some of these facilities to better utilize them. For instance, the demographic study 8 or so years ago that we did when I first came on, maybe it was 8 or 9 years ago, told us, and this is Bonsack Elementary was going to steadily climb. We went from 425 students. We're down to 300 now. I just don't trust those demographics because it's a best case scenario in time. And I get they're making an educated guess, but there's a reason we're declining. And again, we're one of the top school divisions in the state of Virginia. I think it behooves us to figure that out. But thank you for the report.
Can I just make a comment on the vein that you're going off, Tim? I like to see us come up with a solution and campaign actively for other students. So I don't know, as a marketing tactic, would it be appropriate to kind of target some other school divisions and say, hey, come to Roanoke County and here's why. This is what it's going to cost you. And we'd love to have you as a student if you're accepted, because we're not going to take everybody. There's an application process. So I just think that's something that we might want to consider as a board is bringing on somebody or putting our heads together on how we can campaign and actively market ourselves to other divisions and effectively steal the students.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, if we don't have anything else, we can move into close. Mr. Linden, will you read us into close?
Yes, Madam Chair, I move that the Roanoke County School Board convene in closed session for the following: to consider a confidential matter as authorized by Section 2.2-3711A1 of the Code of Virginia for purposes of discussion of the performance of specific public officers, appointees, or employees of the school board.
Second?
Madam Clerk?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.